Okay, now we're going to make this cannonball explode when it hits the ground. So right now the ball rolls off, or falls from the sky, rolls off whatever objects we put in its way, and then it hits the ground. So we want it to explode when it hits on the ground. We're going to need to write a script, and we're going to make an explosion object. Let's make the object first. What I'm going to do is let's just create an object. So create a, no, I'm sorry, let's create an empty. Just create an empty, and we're going to call this explosion. Okay, and then we are going to put an effect on it. We're just going to put a particle system. Okay, for now, that's what it looks like. Let's set the explosion at 0, 0, just to have it start at 0, 0. And then if we have the particle system selected, you'll see it actually at work. Okay, now we're going to actually remove this from here in a sec, but first we're going to make a new folder. And we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to call this folder prefabs. Okay? And what we can do with that folder is we can put things in there that we can call into the game through code. And so we're going to drag the explosion into prefabs. And now look, inside the prefabs folder is that explosion. Okay, so we can call it into the game because it's in that prefabs folder. Okay, so I'm going to remove it from the screen here now. And you'll see that the icon for it has changed now. The cube is filled in. And so we're going to go ahead and remove this. If I could find delete, there it is. There's delete. Okay, now. Okay, so that doesn't do anything yet. So we're going to make it so that it appears once the ball hits the ground. Okay, so let's, you could manage your code system however you want. And I think over these tutorials, I'm going to show you various ways. We're just going to put a script right onto the sphere. Okay, so let's just add a component. And if you go to the bottom of this, you could create a new script. And so I'm clicking new script, and I'm going to say, I'm going to call this Cannonball. I always wonder, is it 2 N's in a row? Yeah, Cannonball script. Okay, and when you hit enter, it'll create a new script for you. We'll manage this assets folder later. We'll put all of our scripts into one folder later. But for now, it created a script for you. Give it a second, and then you're going to go ahead and double-click the script, and your editor will pop up. And here we go. So we have Cannonball script. Now, what we're going to do is basically find out when it collides with the ground, and then instantiate, that's the word for creating, instantiate the explosion. So the first thing we need to do is make this little slot available to us. You'll see what I mean in a second. So game object, capitalization matters. So we're going to call this an explosion prefab. Okay? And then what's really cool is after you save this, you come back to Unity, you'll see a little slot open up here, and there we have it right there. And what you need to do is open up this folder, select the sphere again, and drag the explosion into that slot. Okay, so now the code, let's go back to the code. The code is referring to that prefab from that folder. Okay, and now we're going to make an on collision function. So you can write void, and this is built into Unity. So we could say on collision, make sure I spell everything right, collision enter. You're going to write, you have to write collision with a capital, and on collision enter, collision, and then I'm going to write collision in lowercase now. Okay, you could actually put a different word there, but just if you're following along with me, go ahead and keep it that way. So on a collision enter, when it collides, we're going to instantiate, and the explosion prefab completes it for me. And then we're gonna put it at the ball's transform dot position. That gets its x, y, and z coordinate, and then its rotation. I guess not necessarily necessary for what we're doing, but let's add it in there. And then, okay, so let's see if that works. So when it collides with something, it should instantiate that. Now we might be missing some parts. We might need a rigid body on this. And let me make sure I got a rigid body on there. I believe it can't be kinematic. Let's see if I got it working right. If I need to put rigid bodies on the other objects. Okay. Ah, there it did. It did it. Okay, so you'll see that the particle system comes out right when it hits the first platform and then the bottom platform. Okay, but we want to set it to where it only works on the ground. Okay, why? Well, just because. We're going to say that this is like one of those lava games where the bottom is the only place it'll explode. Okay, so what we need to do is we're gonna add a tag. There's these things called tags in Unity. It's really useful. So I'm going to select the plane, okay, and here it's untagged, right? And there isn't any tag that's called ground, so we're going to add one. So add tag, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit a plus sign, and we'll call it ground. Good, so now we have a tag called ground. And so let's go to the plane and make sure that we select ground. And now when we go back to our Cannonball code, I just double clicked it in there, we're only going to instantiate that if the collision, this collision, by the way, this lowercase collision refers to this right here. So sometimes you could write other or COL for short. And this collision is it's the thing that it's colliding with. Okay, if collision dot game object dot tag is equal to, and you put two equal signs, and we're going to call it ground. If it's equal to ground, if the tag is actually ground, then I'm going to copy and paste this inside of here. So it will only instantiate if it hits something tagged ground. And let's see if we got everything typed correctly. Okay, here we go. Give it a second. And let's hit play. And when it hits the ground, that prefab of the explosion should show, and it does. Okay, good. Now, lastly, we want the ball to disappear. Okay, and so let's go back to our code, and to make the ball disappear, or the cannonball disappear, we're going to actually write this line: destroy. This is how it's going to destroy itself. We're going to say destroy game object. Okay, that just refers to itself. Up here we said collision game object, so it gets information about what we've collided with here, and then the object that game object refers to the thing you've collided with. This refers to itself. And so by the end of this, when it hits the ground, the ball should disappear, and then you should only see the explosion. And then definitely should modify your particle system for the explosion to make it look a lot cooler. So there you have it. Okay, so good. In the next tutorial, we will play around with that particle system and then make it end at some point, because now it's just going to go for a long time, and then put a sound effect on there. Okay, so go ahead and have fun making the cannonball hit the ground and explode. Okay, have fun.